This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
All right, welcome in on this Monday after the opening weekend of the NCAA Tournament. Nick King here. We got Paul Coro on the line, legendary Valley sports writer who's works for GCU, covers the basketball team especially very closely, written and on the radio. Just got back from Spokane late last night. Paul, a memorable weekend, a historical weekend for the school, for the program. Broadly, how can you kind of sum up everything that happened the last couple days in Spokane?
Woke up in Phoenix like I had a fever dream or something about everything that had just happened in the last couple of weeks, and really the totality of the whole season. When these guys roll in June, and you start looking at the pickup games in the basketball facility, and the eye test tells you this is the most talented team that they've had in there. And but there were tons of new parts, and you just didn't know how it would all come together, even though you had Gabe McLaughlin and Ray Harrison, Javon Blackshear Jr., Josh Baker returning like as a core leadership. There was some significant players that were going to be leaned on that were first-time players, and you just don't know how court chemistry, culture, and all that. And from the beginning, this team took off like no other, got off to the hot start, had a loss to South Carolina where you kind of went, I think that South Carolina team's a little bit better than bottom of the SEC this year. So it didn't necessarily look bad, and they were still figuring it out at that point. And at South Carolina ultimately turned out to be really good. And then they went on that 14-game winning streak after that. And all the qualities of this team came out as far as like chemistry and confidence and style of play. And it just all culminated in the last couple weeks where they really kind of hit their potential, rolled through those WAC tournament games. And then they were just in a different mindset when they got to the NCAA tournament, especially for the returning guys. The happy to be there thing was gone. They were looking to expect to win a game. They knew they had a team that matched up better with high seeds. They proved it in that first game to me against St. Is, a top 20 team in the country, 15th ranked. They look like the better team on the court, clearly, all game in a lot of phases to win that game. And then the 48-hour flip from slow down St. Mary's to break your neck Alabama was a lot.
I wonder how satisfying it was for you, who's been around the program, and for people like Jerry Colangelo and Brian Mueller and Bryce Drew too. I think those guys, I think the players appreciated what they were doing, but I imagine it's even a different level for some of the people who have been following the program and kind of been waiting for this moment. That everyone knew you get in the tournament the last couple of years, that the next step was to win a game. Friday night, to win a game and be as convincing as they were. How satisfying was that to watch for you and do you think some other people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it all starts with President Brian Mueller's vision of this. He took leadership of the university and thrusted athletics into Division I, and that's where Jerry Colangelo came in. His relationships to get the meetings with the NCAA to get that going, and they had to go through the 4-year probation. Really, this program's only been in Division I postseason eligible for 7 years, and one of those was the year that postseason was canceled for COVID. And it's a remarkable rise it has to be the fastest growing basketball program in Division I to go to the tournament 3 times in 4 years. And it's, the vision that the specter of the basketball program can lift the university. And I think that's especially what we saw over the last week with the way it was conveyed on television, how the Havoc looked and their passion for the program and how they represent. And I think even more so the watch party at Global Credit Union Arena, where there were thousands in there to watch both games, and True TV or TBS is cutting back and showing. I mean, that really kind of conveyed the campus atmosphere that well from coming out to games. Like, doesn't matter what team's in the building, it's going to be sold out and it's going to be lit. It's a rave every time. and I think everybody's finding out about that. And, that's part of what's attracted recruits to come, and the winning attracts that. And then, so it's really remarkable to see the progression, and the determination to get it to a higher level in each step. Breaking through the tournament, winning a WAC outright was new, going back to back as WAC tournament champions, and all the while kind of sticking to their principles of what Bryce Drew wants for the program, and consistency and the character and the faith aspect of it all intertwined.
I want to eventually circle back to the Alabama game, but kind of the progression aspect of this. It gets a little tricky for me with the extra COVID years and eligibility right now. So see if you can help me with this. Gabe has exhausted his eligibility, correct?
Correct. That's one thing we know.
Tyon Grant Foster, does he have any years left?
He could.
He
yes.
could.
I mean, all of these are predicated on, would be predicated on applications for waivers and such. But yes, I mean, especially when you consider he was out of college basketball for 2 years.
Yeah.
And being a heart condition to do so. I mean, one of the greatest comeback stories in college basketball, for a guy to be told he can't play basketball again, collapse in the middle of an opener against DePaul, and be rushed to the hospital and be shocked back into having his heart go again, and then take 2 surgeries, scarring on the heart, and it has to go to Mayo Clinic to even get cleared 14 months later. And not many teams were going to take a risk on him. And then here's GCU with Bryce Drew, who had a heart history when he was a kid and became an NBA player that was willing to take that risk. So sorry to go sideways on you there, but if he came in and scored 3 points a game, that would be remarkable, let alone become the WAC scoring champ.
Yeah. And you saw Nate Oates talking to him after the game. Like, I think a lot of respect there. And I was getting texts from friends around the country this weekend who were watching GCU for the first time, and talking about how fearless they were as a group, but Tyon Grant Foster being especially impressed with him.
Fearless is perfect description for him too. He really is, and you need big moment guys like that, especially in games where the rest of the game might be struggling or breaking down. He could just will them, and their ability to draw fouls kind of really stemmed with him. But he got a lot of notice. There were some pro scouts in Las Vegas who were talking to me about he's on the radar. And he projects well. He's got a lot of sharpening still to do in his game just from being out so long. But that's the one thing about Bryce Drew and his staff. Their development aspect is so impressive with the details from the inside. I mean, that's a guy whose career high assists was 1, and wasn't really ever asked to defend. And he became this guy who was putting up stats in college that only like Zion Williamson and Shane Battier and Kevin Durant had done in the 2000s.
It's wild. Okay. So Tyon, maybe he goes to the NBA, maybe he could come back. Luke Warr, who was another transfer coming in. Can he come back?
Luke Warr, I also believe, come back. Now you're making me a compliance officer here. This is not my department. But he redshirted his first year at Oregon and played 3 years, and then played this year, and then there's that COVID year within that. So
this is not easy for any of us to understand or follow at this point, unless we're a compliance officer.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the nature of college basketball. Even if guys have eligibility, you don't know from year to year who's coming back. But Ray Harrison was technically a junior. He tested the NBA waters a year ago. He could come back. I believe Javon could come back. I guess so. There's a ton of different ways this could go as far as returning guys, but you kind of hit on it. The exposure that GCU just got by winning a game, having 2 games on national TV like that. How much can that even make things, like the difference in what Bryce Drew is going to be able to do recruiting wise in the portal for this next season? How much of a difference do you think it makes, even after bringing in some pretty good hauls last year, especially with the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's what it makes me think of. Like just getting into the tournament the previous two times, set up their work in the portal last year. Three of their starters this year were new guys from the portal. Colin Moore was the leading scorer at Georgia State, and he came in and was one of the starting guards. We've discussed Tyon Grant Foster, who had been at Kansas and DePaul previously. And then Duke Brennan just moves across town and becomes the starting center, and really, was the only young guy in a very mature older lineup, and a perfect guy for him to grow up alongside was Gabe McLaughlin, this veteran who's been around and everything, and took him under his wing. And now he doesn't look like an underclassman anymore out there after starting for a whole season. And that St. Mary's game, when he in the first minute of the game, when he dove on the floor for the ball under Mitchell Saxon, that was a tone setter to change the whole game, because Saxon was not going after that ball like Brennan was, and he ended up with 6 stitches for it. He leads the WAC, maybe the nation, in stitches this season. He seriously has had about almost 50 stitches, probably combined with all the hits he's taken this season.
And before I continue on kind of the path forward, Gabe McLaughlin, what an unbelievable season. And just what is your appreciation for who he became from watching him a couple of years ago to this season?
It's remarkable in every facet. I mean, you just have to start with him as a person. This guy is an incredible ambassador for the university. In so many ways, his mother has always worked at GCU long before his older brother played soccer at GCU. And so it was probably destined for him to wind up with GCU, even though he had a circuitous route there, but winds up him and Javon Blackshear Jr. in 2019. And they're kind of the groundstone of this whole thing. And he's always kind of had those leadership qualities about him, but his game grew into the role to put him in the position to be that leader. And, at one point on that first tournament team, he was kind of the 6-man hustler rebound guy. And he just works tirelessly at his game to the point where he became a 40% 3-point shooter. He went through a knee surgery when he first got to GCU. He was getting an engineering degree, which is unheard of, for basketball players to do that while playing a major role in Division I, then became a graduate student. So, in so many ways, and he's just the heart of the team. He's a fantastic leader in person, and he developed this, 3-level scoring game where it could be a post threat, a mid-range guy, and hit threes, convert free throws, be the best rebounder on the team, and just the heart and soul of it.
I agree. About as impressive of a student athlete, and as enjoyable as one to talk to as like I've ever covered. So he will certainly be missed and should really be proud of kind of the imprint that he helped leave with this program. How nervous do you think people on campus are going to start to be about Bryce Drew getting phone calls from around the country now?
Probably as nervous as they were in previous years. I don't know. I mean, there's a comfort factor too in him having the career that he's had and being at Valparaiso and Vanderbilt before this. So he's not this coach on the rise who doesn't know what it's like elsewhere. He has a different appreciation for what GCU and Phoenix and the support he gets and the faith aspect that he gets to incorporate in the program that you can't do everywhere, and all the means that he has to build it. I think different than just going out and grabbing the next job. And President Brian Mueller is committed to him and believes a lot in him. He talked about him as like maybe a potential Hall of Fame coach with the track he's going right now. He's taken 3 programs to the NCAA tournament, and
wow,
this one is such a fast riser right now. And I think the Drews like their life. There's a lot of good aspects of it. He's got his couple nephews on the team. He's got his brother-in-law on the staff. His sister is part of the executive team for the university. The Drews are doing pretty well in Phoenix.
That sounds good. I mean, believe me, I would love for Bryce Drew to stay. Love talking to him too. Okay, so we've kind of hit on like the fun parts of this and what it's going to be like going forward, not even to mention like university, the additional applications they're probably going to be getting from non-student athletes. The Alabama game, to be leading with, what was it, like 5-6 minutes left, is as awesome as it was to get that first win. How much did it feel like, gosh, that was there to be advancing to the Sweet 16?
Yeah, that's a gut punch you feel for the whole off season. A 3-point lead, 6 minutes away from the Sweet 16, an incredible position to even be in, to face two top 20 teams consecutively within 48 hours with massive style differences, and to answer the bell. And Alabama was the number one scoring team in the nation, and they scored 19 below their average against GCU. It was only one more than their scoring low for the whole season. So they were doing things that nobody in the SEC or elsewhere has done. And there were aspects of their game that, that usually are there that just weren't. Yeah. The 3-point shooting, they never go 2 for 20. And, there was just so many things like opportunities down the stretch of the free throw misses. Everybody's hung up on the free throw misses. It's not a bad free throw shooting team. They were number 3 in the nation for free throws made this season. It's the whole hallmark of this team was, Bryce Drew calls it being confrontational, players that got in the lane and were confrontational, and it got them out of any shooting slump in any game, and they shot a good number. And in this game, it just was different. That moment at the end of the first half where Grant Foster gets fouled on a 3 and misses 3, that never happens. He's been consistently better over the course of the season. And so all those little moments have regrets, and they had, I think the big one is they get that 3-point lead and they don't get 2 free throw rebounds. And Alabama winds up with a 44-second possession worth 5 points. And GCU never gets the lead back. But even after that, there were 3 chances to tie. And whether it be a free throw miss, a drop pass in the lane, that could have been a layup, or another 3, none of them could get converted. And Bama just, at the end of the first half and in the end of the second half, they just rolled. And they have incredibly talented players. Sears was unbelievable. He just wills that team. A 6'1" guard with 12 rebounds on top of being their top scorer. That's wild. Their transition defense, I thought, was amazing. Yeah. Like, anytime GCU looked like they were going to have a chance to get out and run, all of a sudden Crimson Tide were back.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a tough matchup just given the way Alabama scores like that. So it was really impressive to hold them to what they did. That plane ride back, I don't know if you were able to get in the locker room after the game too, but how would you describe kind of the overall feeling when it's the fresh thing is the gut punch, as you said, and the tough loss? But did you feel like there was still a level of pride in having, made program history and won that game on Friday too?
Yeah. There's definitely both. The remorse hits you right away as players, especially guys playing their last game. And, that brings the tears, and the Bryce Drew poignant comments he makes to the players in the locker room. And then the accomplishments begin to settle in by the time you get to a plane ride overnight. And, that the NCAA sets up all the flights on this one. So that it was a very large plane that, could take cheer and some of the leadership team and stuff like that. And so there was sort of an ovation as the players board the plane and see that, they were getting to that point where they could start to appreciate what they accomplished, that they've taken the program to another level. I'm sure they're going to think about every little play here or there that could change a game. The 11-point final really isn't fair. That game was super tight, and they made it an amazing run to even take the lead. And then you think about the Friday play St. Mary's, the team that's in the top 10 for winning percentage over the last decade, and they led the whole second half against them, and really controlled that game and looked like dominatingly the better team on the floor.
Mm-hmm. The stated goal for some time now has been for GCU to be the next Gonzaga. Does that feel closer? Obviously what Gonzaga is now is, insane as a mid-major. But does this weekend and what this entire season was, as you pointed out, the 14-game winning streak and as consistent as they were from start to finish, do those kind of big aspirations feel a little bit closer than even the last two times when they make the NCAA tournament? But it's a bit of a different feeling this time, I think.
Yeah, because I think now, they've established themselves as kings of the WAC now, once you repeat it and do these things over and over. And a 30-win season is remarkable in any regard, with the schedule that they upgraded this year too. And so, they finished with the 6th best winning percentage in the nation. So they're moving along that way. And, they're trying to be the next Gonzaga or such. And that takes a tremendous amount of stability, but that seems to be starting to happen. And, the team they beat in the first round just outplayed Gonzaga this year. And the team that they beat during the season, San Diego State, is still in the Sweet 16, and they were the former national runner-up. So they're starting to show that they're on that level. And this is a really good coaching staff as far as, you saw the work they did in the portal last year to supplement what they already had. They have a couple really good freshmen coming in. Styles Phipps from St. Mary's High School downtown is coming in, and the Oregon's Gatorade Player of the Year, Austin Maurer, another 7-footer, also will come in, and they'll do their work in the portal. And I think one of the things that's really struck me from the inside about this squad is player development and how much guys get better within the program and over the course of the year. It's been shown time and time again over these different years. And probably, Grant Foster is an obvious one, going from not playing 2 years to becoming a featured dominating player in a lot of regards. But Luke War, you mentioned earlier, he in 3 seasons at Oregon, he had 15 block shots, and he had a 4 block shot game in St. Mary's, and he's done that twice this season. He went from averaging 2.5 points for the first 22 games to averaging 10 for the last dozen or so.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen without the work behind the scenes. And now he's this guy that looks like a stretch 4 and rim protector, who's a unique hybrid for a 6'10" guy. Yeah,
that was like a name that I wasn't even closely paying attention to earlier in the year, and then as you're down the stretch started seeing his name over and over again. I was just like, where did this guy come from? Right on. Paul, thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate the stories that you're digging up on campus, and that'll flow right into baseball and softball now, I know. So we'll see you out at the ballparks over the next couple of months, but appreciate the insight on the run, and really magical weekend for the school.
Yeah, appreciate everything, and appreciate the scene that was created around the city. I heard a lot of people talking about how they were back in the Lopes, and that was a nice buzz for the university and how much they invest in it and in their emotions.
Right on. Thank you, Paul Coro. Talk to you.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.